Hi, Vijay Mistry here. In this video, I'll share with you governance for family-owned businesses, overcoming the 7 key weaknesses. Now, what I've noticed is that there has been this common trend and a common pattern of weaknesses which I have realized family-owned businesses having. So I just want to share these insights with you in case any of these apply to you and your organization. So let's deep dive straight into these value-driven insights. First and foremost, what we really need to look into is same page. What I notice is at that ownership level and the director or executive level, what happens is they are not on the same page. There seem to be a mismatch. Intentions need to be clarified, and intentions can only be clarified if you have a clear specific point of destination, as I call it, the outcome, the vision. It has to be clear, it has to be succinct, it has to be so powerful that it is connected and it is embedded with the rest of the directors and executives. That is the fundamental impact point for organizations. So here's what I can urge you is that as an owner and a board, with your executive team or whoever's at that board level, make sure that you are on the same page. This is fundamental, this is crucial. Make sure that you have that collective construct of understanding what the vision and the mission of the organization is. So I hope you take this on board if there is that mismatch in your organization. Moving forward, when we talk about governance for family-owned businesses, clarity is key. Clarity in communication, clarity in understanding what the expectations are, and when does clarity really come in? When you are on the same page, when you have a vision which has been articulated and connects to each and every executive and board level personnel. So here's my point is that what you need to ensure is that all the information is clear, succinct, to the point, well articulated and simplified, simple to understand. That is very key. So ensure that you have that simplicity in place and clarity in place. In many instances, trust comes in because there is no clear-cut understanding of what is required. So be very clear about it. And how can you have clarity? What I suggest is that re-look into your whole process, re-look into all your touch points and your coordinates and find out exactly what information and what output is required from each and every department. If you have that clarity, excellence will drive into your organization. So clarity is key when we are talking about governance for family-owned businesses. Let's move forward to the next point, which is management meetings. I have attended many management meetings in family-owned businesses. Now that's the only meeting they have. They discuss the financials in depth, but they are looking into the historical profits, they are looking into the historical revenues, they are looking into the historical liquidity and what's happened. Here's my point, is that you need to have a discussion which is at a slightly higher level, which is forward-looking, which is proactive, which is outward looking. So you need to find out what the external environmental factors are and everything. Strategy is good, but it's important to ensure that you connect the strategy to the vision. So that is where you need to have that forward looking mindset. And once you have that particular mindset of forward looking, what's going to happen is it's going to shift and it will change the dimension. Another thing is that make sure it is holistic. In other words, ensuring that all key components of your organization, it doesn't matter whether it's service or manufacturing industry, all the key components are being taken into consideration. All the risk parameters, all the financial information, financial insights, whatever it is, but make sure that the forecasts that you have are meaningful with interpretation. That is very important. So don't just have management meetings, because that, in my opinion, is an important element, but you need to move to another level altogether. So every 6 weeks, or depending on the size and complexity of your organization, you can decide on the frequency as to when you can have these executive meetings. But I suggest that you have this meeting and connect, because that investment alone is going to deeply drive value in your organization. Let's move forward to the next point, which is succession planning. My dear friends, I could spend a lot of time just discussing succession planning. This is like a 3-hour deep session, executive session, but here's just a flavor that what I have noticed in organizations is they have a weakness when it comes to succession planning, in the sense that the next in line, it could be your son, daughter, a relative or a friend or a close associate or a team member whom you believe is a potential candidate who may take over or who is likely to take over the business in future, or you could have two candidates. My point here is that how well are they prepared? That's number one. Number two, do they have the competencies in place? Because that is key. Now, when I'm talking about competencies, what do I really mean? I mean that are they current? Are they relevant? Do they understand what is happening in the external environment to a heightened level? Because when we are talking about that heightened level, it must connect with your industry or sector. Now that is key and crucial. So ensure you spend more time on succession planning. And in future videos, I'll be doing specifically videos on succession planning. So watch out for those videos. But for now, please ensure that you have a leadership pipeline which understands the culture of growth, culture of winning, culture of progression, and also embraces what's happening forward as we move forward and what's happening currently. So that's very important. Somebody who's really switched on. So that is what you really need to do. You need to mentor, you need to coach, you need to ensure they understand the leadership qualities that are required and the new skill sets that are required in order to execute with discipline. Let's move forward to the next one, which is authoritarian. Leadership style is very important. And what I notice in some family business organizations where I've been a corporate coach, non-executive director, board advisor, a mentor, here's what I've noticed is that in some instances, the CEO is very authoritarian. In other words, it's like he or she knows it all. It's good to have confidence. I'm not saying you don't have the confidence, and confidence comes from competence, as we know. But my point here is that know-it-all behavior is not going to drive value, because you won't get the contribution coming from your team members or from the other head of departments. You need to ensure that they are enriched and they are empowered and they contribute to the growth of the organization. It has to be that ownership mindset at all levels, and that can only develop if you have a leadership style where you listen and where you understand and you make those balanced approach decisions. But ensure that this authoritarian leadership is changed and shifts to a better leadership style which would be accommodative to the rest of the pipeline. So let's move forward to the next point, which is disconnect. This is an important point again. And let me give you an example. There was this manufacturing organization where the CEO, he was disconnected with the rest of the processes of the organization. He knew them, but what was happening is there was no engagement, there was no collaboration, there was no active, dynamic, constructive discussions which would drive growth and value for the organization. The discussions were quite passive. It was just business as usual. And here's why this is very important. You need to keep on progressing and raising your standards. In order to raise your standards, what do you really need to do? You need to be switched on, and your leaders, whoever your team members are or whoever's at the board level, needs to know completely what's happening in the organization. They need to know from 50,000 feet down to ground level. Switched on. It's very important to understand exactly what the pipeline is all about and where others can add value. So try avoiding these disconnects and see what you can do. And by the way, disconnects not only from within the organization, but also externally. What's happening outside? What can we do to improve what's happening outside with your stakeholders, with your suppliers, with your customers? You know, the 80-20 principle as well, because 20% may be bringing 80% of the revenue. What are you doing to add more drive and more value to ensure not only a retention, but them referring to more clients for your organization or customers for your organization? So take that point and see if that can help you. Let's move forward to the last point, which is influenced. Now, this is, in my opinion, quite dangerous, because what I've noticed is that in some organizations, the CEO, who's the owner of the organization, is influenced by one or two key personnel in the organization, instead of taking a balanced approach. There's this service industry, and what happened is that there was one particular profit and loss center, and this head of profit and loss center a couple of years ago had made very good profits. And what happened is that the CEO was heavily reliant on that particular head of department in making the decisions as the division went forward. What happened? 18 months later, that division posted a huge loss. So my point here is that be very careful, understand the risk thresholds, the risk appetites, what you really are trying to accomplish, and ask this one question: what are we missing? Rather, what are we missing as a board? Very important question, very powerful question. It will change everything for you. Always identify the gaps. I'm not saying that your CFO and your general manager are not important people. They could be important and they might be adding value to the organization overall. It's better to have a balanced approach and understand what is really happening and what are the factors that you need to look into, rather than just having that myopic, one-sided viewpoint. So my dear friends, I hope you found this video on governance for family-owned businesses, overcoming the 7 key weaknesses, insightful, useful. As always, my purpose is for you to take 1 or 2 points from this particular video, make a difference, make an impact in your organization. I'll see you in the next video. Thank you very much.